And we're live. My name is Kent C. Dodds, and I am here asking questions from Olivier about his awesome library. This is my coworker Justin. So yeah, and Olivier, hey there.
Hello.
So Olivier wrote a really awesome library called ocLazyLoad. It's on GitHub, open source, and it allows for lazy loading of Angular applications, which is not super easy to do because of the way the injector works. So I and Justin have been working on getting our app ready for lazy loading. Oh yeah, good point, Olivier. So yeah, if you are watching this live and you have questions, yeah, we'll answer those. I think we've got the Q&A app actually working in Hangouts. So if you're watching on Hangouts, not on YouTube, then you can open up the Q&A app and we can answer the questions at the end. Olivier can. So yeah, so anyway, we've been working on our app, trying to get it to a place where we could lazy load it confidently, and I just want to ask Olivier some high level of how the library works, as well as try to maybe look at some of our code and the way our app is structured, and try to determine a good way to, or a good strategy to lazy load our application specifically, which should be pretty interesting because our app is, I think it's really awesome and well architected. But it's quite different from any other app I've ever seen or heard of. So that people might get a kick out of that. So anyway, Olivier, why don't you, could you talk about your library, where it came from, just so people get some context, and then we can talk about kind of how it works and how to use it.
Sure. So lazy loading in Angular isn't possible at first because when the application bootstraps, when Angular bootstraps the application, it registers all the components, and then you can't get the providers after that, after the config phase from the application. So if you want to load new components, you have to keep a hold on these providers, and there is one provider by type of component, so one for the controllers, one for the services, and so on. And you have to keep a hold on them, and then you just call the provider with the new component, and it will register it in Angular. The reason they don't do that, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because of how the injection works, but yeah, they don't allow you to do that because you could have unexpected behaviors if you do that. So that's something that I try to minimize as much as possible. But you have to understand that if you lazy load stuff, you can break things if you don't think ahead of how lazy loading will happen in your app.
Yeah,
because
I've actually noticed that already as I'm trying to get things working. Like, and just to verify my assumptions, what you mean is like you forget to load a directive that something uses, and then you go to that page and the directive's not like rendered, and so it's, you just have nothing.
Yeah, and because Angular doesn't offer lazy loading, the modules that you can load aren't necessarily made for lazy loading, because let's take an example. When you define the routes for your application, you do that in the configuration, and if you try to load new routes later, it won't work because it's not something that is supposed to be possible after the config of your application. So lazy loading a router won't work, for example. But some applications.
Really, sorry, I was just going to say we're going to have to really change the structure of our app right now then, because the configuration of a route belongs to the route, and I was hoping to be able to like lazy load a page and like all of its children, and then like the configuration of that route happens in that page. So you're saying that you have to have basically all your configuration stuff has to happen up front?
No, you don't. What I meant was that lazy loading a router won't work, but you can add new routes to UI router, probably to the new router after the config phase. Just you have to use some tricks to do that, but it's possible. But just some modules aren't made to be lazy loaded because they assume that the application state is fixed. So yeah, sometimes it won't work. For example, most of the Google modules, such as let me check the documentation, but ng-animate, for example, if you lazy load ng-animate, it won't work because Google will internalize some calls to the module inside their code, and there's no way to access this after Bootstrap. So yeah.
So that's because like the AngularJS like core library is looking for animate, and if it's there, then it's going to behave differently.
Yeah.
Okay, and probably jQuery is the same way. Like you can't lazy load jQuery; you have to load it before you load Angular.
Well, you can lazy load jQuery, but Angular won't use it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Cool. So maybe just to verify and clarify. So my understanding is that the way that this lazy loading works is, let me ask a question first. Do I have to give you or call something into ocLazyLoad to bootstrap my app, or can I still just do Angular Bootstrap and do it like however I normally do it?
No, all you have to do is ocLazyLoad has to be in your application from Bootstrap. It has to be loaded at the same time as your application because the library will kind of overwrite angular.module, and it will, so that it can get all the modules that will be loaded later will call angular.module to define themselves. So ocLazyLoad will intercept those calls so that you don't have to give the names of all the modules and components and so on. So yeah, it has to be loaded at Bootstrap. But after that, you can lazy load at any time. At any time you want, you can lazy load. Yeah, you can lazy load as there is a directive to do it, and there is a service, and yeah, you can call it wherever you can call a service.
I'm curious how the directive works. I remember hearing that there was a directive. So do you like get a hold of the inner template and then say like compile this after I've lazy loaded the?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
But I think that sometimes it's kind of buggy if your component, if you add more directives that depend on the content of the component. It's not really, I don't know, some edge cases are not well managed by the directive.
Yeah, I don't think that we use the directive. I think mostly, my assumptions are correct, we'll probably be using the resolve in a state. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the usual way to do it, yeah.
Okay. Is there, let's see, what else about the API do you think would be good for people to know?
Well, so ocLazyLoad includes a loader for JS files, CSS files, and templates files. But you don't have to use it if you want. You can use your own loader, and then you just call inject instead of load, and you will inject. The library will check if new modules have been loaded by something else. So you don't have to use the loaders if you don't like them, or if you want to use something else, like required JS, for example.
Okay. Have you So our app is being bundled with Webpack, and a while ago, like we talked about that a little bit. Have you had a chance to look at Webpack at all since then? See how,
yeah. I've seen your Haged's videos, and I've tried. I've worked on it a bit because I was doing a talk at Amsterdam lately at GoToCon, so I wanted to talk about it. So yeah, I used it a bit, but I don't use it at work or anything else.
Right. So you got the what is it called? The
basics.
What?
The basics
of
Webpack, yeah.
So did you get the code splitting? Is that how you did it? And you just did the require.ensure thing? Is that how that worked?
I use the service. Yeah, I did not use it with my library. I use it just to try Webpack. So.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I want to go into and like share my screen and so show you the way that our app is structured and how things look, and maybe there are red flags that you can say, hey, you don't want to do that. But before we do that, do you have any other things that you wanted to mention about the library?
Let me think about it. So I wanted to write things for Webpack and System.js, but I never took the time to do it. A few other people have been active and have worked out solutions for System.js mainly, I think, and Webpack not so much. No. So if you do something, it would be nice to add it to the documentation at least. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, definitely we'll do that. Okay, so why don't I share my screen with you, and we'll just do the whole thing. And there we go. And that's my personal email. Awesome. Okay. So here's our app, or our code for our app. Here's the app. And this is what happens when you haven't loaded all your directives. This page should look like this.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm actually in the middle of refactoring. So I haven't even started working with ocLazyLoad or anything like that. I'm just currently refactoring our how we do module registration and dependencies to make sure that we have the right dependencies in the right place so that Webpack can chunk our pieces of code correctly. So anyway, so our app starts in the app directory at index.js, and here it just loads index common, jQuery, and then Angular, and then it loads our components. And so if we look at that, here we bring in some CSS stuff. Is this too small, or should I make this a little bigger?
No, it's okay.
Let me just make it a touch bigger, just in case. Let's see, presentation, or we'll do my egghead. There we go. Okay, so when the document's ready, then I do a bunch of crazy things, and then I bootstrap the module. So at this point, do I need to make ocLazyLoad part of the module that I bootstrap, or do I make it a dependency of the module I'm bootstrapping?
Yeah, it should be a dependency of your application, I think.
Okay, cool. So AZWeb is our the main module that brings everything together. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting. The way that it works is it brings in some like common configuration type things, and then we have our state modules. And this states directory is mapped to look identical to the URL for the state. So starting at, let's see, if we start at app, that would be the first slash after the .com. And then every children represents a slash in the URL, and then the name of the folder represents either what the URL is or a parameter. So we have partition would be the parameter is the partition ID and then a slash, and then accounts and then a slash, and then the account ID and then a slash, so on and so forth. So
Okay.
it leads to a very, very, very deep folder structure. But when Justin came on, I don't know if you loved it at first.
It took me a little bit to get used to it, but eventually I was like, wow, this is great.
It's really nice because I can look at this and I can say, oh, I know exactly where that is in the project. So anyway, yeah, so what I'm thinking is, oh, and all of that comes together right here with the states. So we have this big abstraction called state utils that will get all of the modules for all of the states, or at least all the root modules, and then they kind of depend on each other hierarchically. And then those states are added to the dependencies for the main module. So this steps ultimately gets to be pretty big. But once we start doing lazy loading, that'll be a little bit different.
Okay.
So anyway, then we just do some configuration stuff. So I'm guessing it's right here is where I'm going to require the ocLazyLoad and add it as a dependency. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So then to do the actual lazy loading, let's look at here. So like I said, I'm currently refactoring. So yeah, but right from the start we have our root, and then we have if we're in development, we also add an example, and that's just like a whole separate app that is good for trying things out and testing things out. So one of the things that I really want to be able to lazy load is that page, because then we can actually deploy it, but our users don't have to pay for like some sort of development related thing. So this is what states commonly look like for us. So we have our example state, the index.js here. It has some dependencies specific to it, and this has not yet been refactored, but this is the idea. So is this where I do the lazy loading, or like, because this?
Yeah, in the resolve function, I think.
Okay, so it would happen right here. I would lazy load the components and the children. So up front, I would have this index.js that would be sent just so that I have this configuration for the route. But then once we get to the route, I can lazy load the controller and the template and the children and components. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if I were just to pseudocode this really quick, I have load lazily is a function that has ocLazyLoad.
Yeah, with a dollar ocLazyLoad.
Sorry.
At the beginning, yeah. It's a dollar ocLazyLoad with the sign $.
Oh, $. Okay, yeah. Okay, so then I say $ocLazyLoad.
That load.
Load.
Yeah. And then Okay, yeah. Return.
And then this is the URL to the JavaScript that I need to load.
Yes.
Okay, so that's an unknown. I'll have to figure out what that URL would be based on Webpack, because I'm pretty sure that for me, I need to just do ensure or something like that. I can't remember how Webpack's code splitting works, but yeah, so I'll have to play around with that. But all I have to do is just do this load, and then oh, that's another thing. So like none of our controllers are actually we don't ever say module.controller anywhere. We just require the controller function directly, and you know, and it's just a function. And so we can't lazy load that, right? Like,
well, I don't know.
I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
If it calls module.controller somewhere, when the file is executed, then it will work, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know how the controller is defined. So
yeah, I think they just do $controller, yeah, like they instantiate the controller themselves. So okay, that's something else to look at then. This would actually be a really good use case to move to the component-based over state-based. So okay.
I think the state that data will not be lazy loaded. Well, you won't access the lazy loaded thing in the state.data, I think. You will have to append them maybe in the resolve. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to figure that out, how to do that. Yeah, because like, yeah, this will be interesting, but this is helpful.
And for the controller, you will have to give the name of the controller to the state controller.
Okay.
So that it can look for it when the root is instantiated.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is we'll create a directive for each state and be like, you know, this state's directive, and then we'll just pass in any resolve things. So we have like foo equals vm.foo, and then that way we don't have to worry about controllers. It'll just be part of the directive. That's probably what we'll do. I've been wanting to do that anyway, because some people really like the state-heavy UI, but I don't. So, yeah. Okay. I think that's surprisingly easier than I thought. Is there anything else that we need to consider with this, or because like we can register state? So this register state. Sorry, I should explain. Nowhere in our app anywhere. Well, sorry. There's one place in our app where we say angular.module to create a module. And then we don't ever actually get a module anywhere either. And so the reason for that is we have this abstraction, register module. This is where it happens. It's right here. And you'll notice when we're not in development, the module name is actually random. So you couldn't possibly do an angular.module to get a module, and that really with modularity, because now like you can ensure nobody's going to be getting modules that don't exist yet. So anyway, the reason that I bring that up is just to ask, are there any red flags with doing things that way, or do you see that as being a problem at all?
No, I don't think so, because since version 1.0, you don't have to give the name of the module, so
okay.
I think it should work.
Okay, awesome. I think I had and then with the config phase, so if my module has a config, is that a problem?
No, it works.
Oh.
It depends what you config in your config, but it should work, yeah.
Okay.
Unless your configuration uses one of those modules that cannot be lazy loaded. So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I think. Oh, so you're saying what if I have Angular animate, and Angular animate can't be lazy loaded, but I don't lazy load Angular animate, but I have some config.
Yeah, it should work, but it's more about router configuration, I think. If you try to add new states to your router, just like that, it won't work. You will have an error, because they just check that the config is over. So in UI router, it doesn't work unless you use UR router, one of those extra modules. The name is let me check that. His name is I used it last week.
So you're saying that I can or I can't add new states to my router?
You can if you use UI router future states. It's the name of the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the link. It's an official link, so problem with it.
UI router extras?
Yeah.
States.
That's something named called future states.
Okay.
If you use UI router, I don't know if it's
Yeah,
the case.
yeah, because the way that that our code works is we like each state, if it has children, will require the children, and then the child itself will set up the configuration for it. And if we lazy load that, then that state needs to be created later. So yeah, okay. I think that's okay if there's a path to get that to work.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it does. Worst case scenario, I don't even want to think about that. But we'd have to take all of our UI router configuration and have that all loaded initially, and then everything else would be lazy loaded, which I wonder if that would even buy us. Well, I'm sure it'd buy us plenty. But okay, cool. Do you have any questions?
No.
Yeah, really appreciate you taking some time, Olivier, to explain this awesome library to us. And hopefully we'll be able to contribute some examples of lazy loading with Webpack.
Yeah. So when you call the load function, it will load all the files in parallel. Well, you don't know which file will end first. If you have some of your files depend on each other, you can add a parameter named Siri. Siri, that's it. So you say Siri.true, and it will load the file in Siri. In serial. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll be okay because Webpack will make sure that they're in the right order for us.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be okay there. But yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, thanks a lot, Olivier. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll be hitting you up on. Do you have a chat for ocLazyLoad?
No.
You should get a getter. It's great.
Well, then I will have to check it and
Yeah.
answer the questions.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
I'd rather get questions on GitHub. And
yeah.
It's all in the same place. So.
Cool. All right. Sweet. Yeah, I don't have any notes.
I don't either.
Okay. Thanks, Olivier. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.